Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. It's Wednesday, January 9th today, and we're taking a look at the Sun conjoining with Pluto, and we're going to look at that as we also take a look at the fact that Jupiter is moving into a square with Neptune. So this is a pretty significant transit. I have this one circled on my calendar this month because Sun-Pluto is a big deal. It happens, Sun-Pluto hard aspects happen throughout the year 4 times, but it's interesting to see it happening, the Sun conjoining Pluto, as there's another major outer planetary configuration perfecting like Jupiter and Neptune. So I've spoken about Jupiter and Neptune's square already. If you go back in my YouTube videos a little bit, you'll find a Jupiter-Neptune talk that I did. So I won't go into great depth with the Jupiter-Neptune transit. But here are some of the things that I wrote today, just kind of giving you an idea about the Sun-Pluto conjunction, and then we can talk about how that fits in to the Jupiter-Neptune square. So remember that ancient astrologers believed that the sun was something like the organ of the perception of the soul. So the sun is related to our intelligence, the ability to discriminate between spirit and matter, the ability to look and see what is true from what is false. And in that sense, the Sun-Pluto conjunction can lead to a deep and complete transformation of our intelligence, a sense of being able to see something in the correct way. Sometimes we like to tell ourselves that everything is subjective. Well, it's just how you feel. It's what that person feels. Everything is totally relative. But if you're trying to get a spaceship to the moon and you need the physics to get you there, your personal subjective feelings aren't what you would use to figure out the physics of, rocket science, right? So similarly, even though there is a great personal and subjective dimension to our lives and to reality, our experiences that we have with each other and of the world and reality are also capable of being true and sometimes false. And I say this, I kind of labor this point because the Sun-Pluto is really about replacing truth where there has been falseness. So that's one thing that can come up pretty potently during a Sun-Pluto conjunction. That's false, can't deal with it anymore. And sometimes it's in a person, it's in a relationship, it's at work, it's within ourselves. But we look and we say, that is not true. But now I know what is. And so because I've reached the truth, I now can take action or move forward in life knowing what the truth of the matter is. The truth is liberating. Even if it's difficult, the truth is liberating. The other thing that you have to be careful of is Sun-Pluto sometimes thinks that the truth is a weapon. So sometimes, when I grew up, I remember being in school sometimes, and I remember this phrase when people would say mean things to each other in school, and people would be like, I can't believe you said that. And someone else would say, the truth hurts. It's like teenagers. So the truth hurts, this. So I think back about it, I think of how many times probably me and my friends hurt one another by that phrase, the truth hurts. Well, just deal with it. It's true. And you should just, take the truth on the chin, and you don't have any reason to complain, because if it's true, then it doesn't matter how the truth is delivered. You have to be very careful of that with Sun-Pluto, because Sun-Pluto can also be about dominance and power And using truth as a way of dominating or overpowering other people does not take away the bullying component. So truth, we should also think of as not just a what, or not just something that's purely objective, but truth is also in the way that we carry truth, in the way that we embody truth, in the way that we communicate truth. So real change, when we get to the real truth of something, transforms us completely, and it transforms our hearts. The sun is also related to the spirit soul, and the spirit soul's true nature is eternity, bliss, and knowledge. The bliss part is very important. The happiness, the bliss, the beauty, the love. If that's who we really are, then if we have knowledge of truth, and we recognize that we're eternal, we recognize that we're beautiful, then truth is patient and truth is kind. Truth and love can go hand in hand. I think that's the message I'm trying to get across here. A change of thought and a change of mind. Pluto Sun. The elimination of something corrupt, something malignant, something troublesome below the surface. That's a Sun-Pluto dynamic. The exposure of something that's been hidden or festering. You can't avoid not dealing with it any longer. Scandals and the changes forced by scandals or exposure. Revelations of hidden information. These are Sun-Pluto things, bringing the deep, the dark, the Hades, Pluto, into the light of conscious awareness, Sun. A transformation of heart and soul, the feeling that one cannot persist any longer. I have to eliminate something. I have to start at the bottom. We talked about that a little bit with this past week's solar eclipse in Capricorn. It's kind of a Saturn feeling right now, a new beginning in Saturn, Saturn's territory. Death and the understanding granted by endings. Seeing what's below the surface, seeing people for who they really are, purging things, the eruption of powerful unconscious forces. They come up, they're hard to deal with, but they transform our understanding. They make something that was dark light, so to speak. They also remind us of the value of darkness. So death is a teacher. Darkness is part of what is. So Pluto also wants to be included in our understanding and our awareness, wants to grow us up and make us more mature, Capricorn, Saturn, by showing us the unavoidable realities, the things we sometimes don't want to look at. One of my spiritual teachers was recently talking and said that when people start dying, when people literally start dying, a lot of the times, many people have to leave the room, walk out. They don't want to be around it. And this is because we're uncomfortable with it. We're uncomfortable seeing something that's true about ourselves and about where we're all going. So, wounds, wounding, and the will to rise up from difficulties or even sickness. That's a Sun-Pluto resurrection, death and resurrection kind of theme. A more sober understanding that transforms. You also have to be careful of seizing power or the seduction of taking greater power. You also have to look at power, experience, and wisdom. And you can even think of the dying old man, the dying old patriarch, or the corrupt old person, Sun-Pluto. Seizing power, taking power, it's mine, sort of solar, autocratic, Plutonian power grab. Or you're thinking of the dying old man or the corrupt old person. All different Sun-Pluto images. Now, when you pair this up with Jupiter's square to Neptune, which is happening this week, things get pretty interesting, right? Jupiter-Neptune is delivering a kind of vast and expansive, super Jupiterian moment, faith, new images, ideas, and visions, the desire for sweeping change and growth. And yet it's coming in the midst of this unbelievable heaviness. It's a month loaded with some hardcore Capricorn energy, right? But paired with it at the same time that the Sun-Pluto conjunction is happening, you have Jupiter moving into a square with Neptune. I wrote this today. Our bottom line is our foundation right now. The elimination of whatever is unnecessary, as well as getting real with ourselves about what darkness is hiding behind the facade, is happening just as a new dream is presenting itself. It's as though it's saying, hey, if you can get real and get honest, there's a new horizon presenting itself, a new dream, a new vision. We may have to move through some of the heaviness first, but it's there for us. So that's a little bit on the Sun-Pluto conjunction alongside of the Jupiter-Neptune square. Now what I want to do is just highlight for you guys a few things. So you can see that the other thing that's going to be happening in the next, by the 13th, right around the time that Jupiter and Neptune perfect, is Mercury will be conjoining with Saturn. That's when we're going to finalize a plan or start to organize a strategy. So this is the Sun Pluto's transforming our understanding, and new visions coming in. And then you see Mercury, Saturn, and you think, okay, finalizing something, eliminating the thing that you have to eliminate, and then starting to rebuild, restructure, reorganize. So that's what's happening between now and say the 13th, about the next week. As this is happening, the light of the moon is building, and we'll head toward a very interesting first quarter moon in Aries. This is, of course, happening as Mars in Aries is also building into a square with Saturn. So as the month goes on, there's also this pressure cooker of Mars, Saturn, get the work done, get the work done. But we have to be very careful that we don't press too hard and exhaust ourselves, or that we don't get too rigid, too severe, and impatient with the desire to make these big, huge, sweeping changes too quickly. We could break something in the process. So little extra few insights about some of the astrology still to come that pairs up with all of this Sun, Pluto, Jupiter, Neptune talk today. All right, I'm going to take a few questions and answers from listeners, viewers. All right. So Alex asks, what are some of the main differences between a transiting planet aspecting a natal planet and a transiting planet aspecting another transiting planet? Good question. When you're studying transits in your birth chart, or just in general as a student of astrology, transits to a natal planet are going to activate topics in your chart through the house rulerships. So if a transiting Mars is going over your natal Mercury, well, let's make it's a square, making a square in opposition to it or something like that, then you might think about which houses Mercury rules in your birth chart, and therefore what topics will be affected, and then they're being affected in a Mars-like way. You can use transits like that to understand what topics in your life are likely to be activated. You could look at the house that Mars is transiting through currently, as well as aspects it's making in your chart, to get a specific read on what kinds of topics and what elements of your natal karma, so to speak, are being what was promised in your natal chart and how it is currently manifesting. You can think of the transits as the kind of like the arms of an elaborate cosmic clock, a karmic clock that's indicating what kinds of things are going to happen at what time. That's one way that transits are used. If you look at two planets transiting one another in the sky right now, for example, if you look at the Sun's conjunction to Pluto, those two planets don't have anything to do with your natal chart per se. That's just what's happening in the sky right now. So we read that as an omen or a sign to be interpreted in a mundane sense for everybody. It's kind of like the current astro weather. That's one way that it can be used. Remember that it's really helpful to think about all the planets as like tarot cards. It's like there's a Sun-Pluto tarot card in the sky right now. All right, and if you're looking up at the sky for any reason, it's going to play into the answer to whatever question you might pose to the sky right now. So that's one way of thinking about what's happening in the sky right now. You can take that Sun-Pluto transit that we just talked about and insert it into the whole sign house of Capricorn in your birth chart, or see if that Sun-Pluto conjunction is making any meaningful aspects to something in your birth chart, and get information from that too. The general difference is that transiting planet to something in your natal chart, we're looking at the symbolic overlay between the sky and the planets at the time of birth. If we look at two planets in the sky right now, we're basically just looking at two planets in the sky and using it as, most of the time, as an omen for collective events. Or you can look at that transit in the context of a horary chart, or plug it into your own birth chart, or whatever else. So I hope that that answers your question, Alex. Someone asked me if I know much about high quality reading material on Chiron. Melanie Reinhardt wrote a book on Chiron. I think Adam Gainsbourg wrote a book on Chiron. And those are the only two that I'm aware of. I'm not a huge Chiron person, which is weird because Chiron's exactly conjoined my ascendant in the birth chart, but I haven't pursued a lot of interest or study in Chiron or the asteroids or trans-Neptunian objects or anything like that. So it's not really my area of expertise. So that's all I'll be able to say about that one. But Melanie Reinhardt and Adam Gainsbourg wrote two good books. Okay. So someone else asked a question about horary charts. Horary charts are charts for a question that's asked. They write, this is from Deborah, she writes, chance and loss of control feel like important aspects of any divination system, but horary astrology is based on pulling a chart when the question is asked, and this feels like something the querent has a lot of control over because we can all see the sky. What prevents the querent from just asking the question when they are likely to hear what they want to hear? Integrity. That's the simple answer. So the question she's asking, Deborah's asking, is if you're going to cast a chart for the moment of a question like, will I get the job, or will this work out, or some particular question, and you know where everything's at, then why wouldn't you just wait kind of until the sky is in an ideal moment then to ask so you get the answer that you want? First of all, that wouldn't be horary astrology. That would be manipulation of the oracle. Anytime you manipulate the oracle, it's not a good thing because you're forgetting that there's a person behind the oracle. there's a divinity. There's a divine agency that is speaking through the oracle. And a lack of respect for that agency or an attempt to manipulate it doesn't go over well. So it's just not recommended. You see a lot of astrologers talking about this exact topic, especially with horary. You have to wait until a question naturally arises in your heart. Bonatti says, he's a great medieval astrologer, Bonatti, sort of medieval Renaissance, says to wait, I think it was a day and a night or 2 days even, and take the question into the heart and meditate and sit with it. Let the question clarify itself and then go to the astrologer. And don't be sitting there conscious of the time or the clock or the astral clock while you're doing that. You might have some awareness of it that you can't help, but just don't be contrived. Just let the question arise naturally from the heart. Contemplate it, sit with it, make sure that you're not asking it. You understand your motivations for asking it. Make sure that you're clear that the number one reason for asking a question is to arrive at the truth. And the truth sets us free, releases us from anxiety about the future. If that's the real intention and you've sat with it, clarified the question, then you go to an astrologer. And then the astrologer will cast a chart for the moment of that question from their location. And if that's manipulated with, you know it, the oracle knows it. There's no hiding that manipulation, in other words. And it will distort your practice. It will distort the answer. And it will lead also to the oracle not speaking to you as easily, or we just have to remember that this isn't a machine, that it's think of it more like a person. Think of it like a wise sage that uses the sky to speak to us. That will shift the nature of how and why we approach the sky for a horary question. So yes, someone could manipulate it, but they shouldn't, and that's not the point. So I hope that that helps, Deborah. All right, let's see. Do I have any others here? I think one of the person had another question asking about out of bounds planets. This is a concept where it's just very basically, if a planet moves above the 23.5 degree of latitude above the ecliptic or below, which are the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, that we have a planet whose, if their latitude is outside of that range, above or below, then they're out of bounds. Why out of bounds? They're out of the range of the sun. The sun will go up, its arc and the ecliptic will go up to 23.5 and down below 23.5 to get to those tropics, Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer. And so any planet that's latitude is within that range is considered in bounds. Any planet that's considered beyond that range is out of bounds and will be more of a maverick. It's outside of the realm of the king, the sun. I don't pay a lot of attention to out of bounds planets. I don't believe it's an ancient or traditional concept, specifically the out of bounds piece. I think it's more modern. I'm not 100% on that. I don't personally pay a lot of attention to it because I feel like the chart is already always saying too much rather than too little. And I think what most astrologers need to work on is, including myself, frequently, is how to be more concise in our readings or delineations rather than adding more and more and more and more stuff to the charts. As evidence, the chart that I just pulled up, by the way, which is a printout from an online source, I'm guessing. This was sent to me by a reader. It was just packed, which is way too much stuff, way too many lines, way too many planets. Most of the time, we don't need that many. It's just like a tarot spread. If you lay out 40 cards, you're swamping yourself as a reader, you know. So just that's my own little craft point. All right. So that's it. That I've just emptied the Q&A box. If you have a new one you'd like to add, feel free to email me. Put YouTube Q&A in the subject line and email me at nightlightastrology@gmail.com. I hope this has been interesting and informative. Thank you so much.